Benny, first of all, let's talk about Carlos Ghosn. Do we think that he's actually spearheading this since he was the instigator of the alliance in the first place?
Yes, good morning. So that seems to have Carlos Ghosn's fingerprints all over it. He's sort of the master of alliances. He created this Renault-Nissan alliance in the first place. And he did sort of drop a not-so-subtle hint last month when he said he wanted to solidify this alliance in his next tenure, which just started. He wanted to cement the alliance, and that's probably what we're seeing here now. We reported about an hour ago that these two companies do want to come together under one single umbrella. The big question in all of this is, what will the government say? What will the French government say? What will the Japanese government say? Because so far it's been sort of a carefully orchestrated alliance, and nobody's had any particular dominance in this. But the French government own a direct stake in Renault. Will they want to see that relinquished or slimmed down? That's one big question that the people will be asking. So there's a lot of hurdles they have to take before this actually comes through. So far, no comment from the company, so we'll have to see what the next steps are.
Benny, what will the French government have to say about the deal, and what will the Japanese government have to say on their end about the deal?
So the French government now owns 15% of Renault, and they have special voting rights, so they have a very strong seat at the table. The Japanese government looks at this alliance very closely, even though they have no direct involvement. But they will want to see, if this does happen, where will the future seat of this company be? Will it be in France? Will it be in Japan? Will it be somewhere entirely different? Some companies, like Fiat, are listed or are based in the Netherlands, for instance, to sort of give them that slightly more neutral touch. So that's one of the points that we'll have to look at. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, was the economy minister at the time when the French government actually raised its stake in Renault. So he knows this alliance fairly well. He knows the players, and so he'll probably be looking at this very closely. The French government, traditionally fairly robust in its approach to sort of the corporate landscape. They like to have a role in key players. So whether they really want to pull out or relinquish their role, that's a big question mark that's hovering over all of this.
Benny, what does it say about car makers more broadly? Do they need to get bigger to basically compete on a larger scale, for example, for driverless cars, but also for some of the new, AI and future of transport?
Absolutely. I mean, what we are seeing now is probably one of the biggest upheavals we've seen in the car industry in decades, maybe even since the car was invented. We are moving away from this concept that a car is bought by an individual and then owned by that individual and has a combustion engine. What we're seeing instead is people are sharing cars, they're not actually owning them. The engine might not be a combustion engine, or it might be a battery-powered engine or something else. So a lot of things are changing in the industry, and Carlos Ghosn has really been at the forefront of that. There's the Nissan Leaf, which is doing fairly well. Renault has made a hard push into EV engines. And the question really is, how are we best positioned to play a role in this? We have behemoths like Volkswagen pushing very aggressively into this market. We have new alliances forming, like Geely buying a stake in Daimler. So in that dynamic, we are seeing these car makers looking at, okay, do we have our ducks in a row? There are alliances out there like Daimler Chrysler that failed, but Carlos Ghosn, as I said, is sort of the master of holding these things together, spinning these multiple plates. So he's probably thinking, let's consolidate it now, clean up our holdings, and that way we're best positioned to capture these changes that are happening in the industry.